We are now recording.
Okay. Yes, thank you, George, Jill, for that introduction. That was really kind, and thank you for obviously bigging me up as well. I would say that although I have experience with GIS, I don't think that I would say that I'm an expert. I'm always learning. I'm always learning new things. I've been working with it for maybe the past 10, 13 or so years, and I learn something new every day. So it's more of a kind of like, I'm hoping that kind of like we can go on a journey together, because there'll probably be things that you can bring to this that I won't know about either. So I'm hoping you can all hear me clearly. That's okay. I will start sharing my screen. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing. That's a problem.
Don't want that. We don't want that.
Can you give me the power, Jill?
Sorry. There we are. Yeah, there you are. That should happen for you.
Should we try that again? Okay.
Is that you there?
All right.
Told you we're new to this.
So hopefully you can now see my presentation in front of you. Is that correct, Jill?
Can everybody else see that? I can. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I can. Thank you.
Okay, right. So yes, I'm Sarah McGaughty, as we've just said, and there we go. So I'm going to be delivering a series of 4 of these sessions on a Wednesday over February and into March. So for this session today, I'm going to be talking. There's not going to be any interactive kind of like actual instruction. What I'll be doing is I'm going to be talking about geographic information systems and how they can be applied, and the discussion of the sort of potential for GIS in heritage related fields and beyond that as well. And I'm going to use a whole kind of like range of examples for that from either heritage or again beyond that as well. And some of those will be quite complex examples that are interactive and online maps, and some of them will be much more simple and maybe something that maybe you think, oh, I could actually apply that myself, because I know that you've all got quite a range of skills. Some are kind of novices, and some of you have some experience hands-on with suites of GIS. So session 2, the second day, will be an introduction to the basics in so a freely available GIS system called Quantum GIS or QGIS, and I'm hoping that all of you know a little about it. And I'll go very slowly through how you download the GIS application and the types and examples of data that are available for use in it, and how you load that information, those layers. And then we'll look at the interface together and how you kind of work your way around that. So hopefully nothing too scary for anybody. And then on the third session, we'll be looking at how kind of like you implement that, and maybe moving on to how you could create your own simple maps for your own projects, own uses, how you'd add those layers and change the symbology, and how you kind of like understand what that information, location data, spatial data, what attributes that has, what information it holds. And then day 4, session 4, is really about sort of like the more complex uses of GIS. We can look at sort of digital elevation models, so sort of 3D stuff, the more kind of like sexy stuff, I think, probably going on to that. So that's the layout for the next 4 sessions. Then today we'll be just kind of, this is kind of like sort of the agenda for today, which is what is a GIS, and you know, why are we interested? What are the power of maps with their use within GIS? Who uses it? The types of GIS and mapping software. What types of data you can combine within a geographical information system. And then I'm going to go through a whole set of examples. Some of those will be global examples, some national, and some quite local. Well, local to obviously what I'm talking about is Scotland, Argyll and Bute. And we'll be looking at those from heritage and other examples from beyond that. And then at the end, I hope we can have a kind of like a discussion and look at what we've discovered together, and then also what to expect in the next session. So first of all, geographic information systems, or GIS. So it's a computer system, and it's designed to capture and store and analyze and display data. And it's all related to position on the Earth's surface. Brings together information such as maps and coordinates and boundaries, and it attaches them to descriptive data, things like statistics and the characteristics of the information. And it sort of helps to create this comprehensive understanding of our world. So that's kind of like it sounds very complex, and in some ways it is. But basically, what we're learning about is how to make a map. And this is a map. So this is a map of the 16th century, from the 16th century, and it's commissioned by Henry VIII as a means of kind of like well, he thought that maps were power, and it was a means of controlling the state and repelling invasions. And so he saw the kind of like the use in being able to kind of like control what was going on. And also he wanted to keep the French out, I think. So I mean, maps can serve as windows into information and enable us to discover and understand location. And they can also tell a story as well. And evoke emotion, and we can rely on them to provide really critical information, as Henry obviously thought in this case, in his decision making. And I know technology has brought us a long way from Henry's coastal maps, with their kind of like, as you can see, artistic flourishes and somewhat interesting use of scale there, so the gigantic ships and the actual ports where the buildings are massive. But I believe we all now have the kind of power to be map makers ourselves, because of the wealth of the free, easily accessible information and the software, the tools that are available to us. So obviously Henry, he couldn't have ever imagined the kind of things that we have at our fingertips now. So we all have that power. So I think probably the fundamental thing that's changed is, if we can look at it here, I shall just give, hopefully this works if we have a look. There. Was it in? Let's move in here. Here we go. And I'll just open that up. So I'm sure you all can identify that. It's the globe. And basically those lines on there are latitude and longitude lines. And you can see the meridian line going through the UK there, the Greenwich meridian. And this is the game changer. Latitude and longitude are fundamental in transforming our ability to map and to understand the world. The latitude measures the distance north to south of the equator, and locates positions along the Earth's surface horizontally around here. And then the longitude measures the distance east or west from the prime meridian, like I say, the Greenwich meridian. It allows us to pinpoint positions on a grid system. And this gives us precise locations for identification on maps and on globes. And this ability to pinpoint position is really an essential component of GIS, and broadly more kind of things like satellite global positioning systems. So really we can always now know where we are, essentially. And like I say, that's sort of technologically, that's the real game changer. And hopefully this will. Okay, great. So we know now that we've got this ability to use these grids and to find our position. So who is it that's using, or who is it that wants to use GIS? What are the examples? So these are just a few of them, really, and I'll be illustrating some of these in more detail as we run through the session. So the examples are, so they're used in disaster relief and mapping humanitarian work. They're used all of the time for urban and rural planning. When every time there's a national census, that information will go into GIS, and then it can be analysed to look at geographic distribution and demographic change. That's really important in planning for the future. Environmental management is now for modelling and planning in the environment, for geological mapping, for planning in military geospatial intelligence, used all the time. And maybe those last two are ones that we have more of an interest in here today. And in fact, archaeology, they were very early adopters of the use of geographical information systems, because they recognised that you can analyze distribution and spatially, and also you can look at things like the evolution of a landscape with time. And also, although slightly later to the party with history, historic GIS, the use of gazetteers to connect a location to information through geocoding. And again, this is increasingly being used as well. So if we look at some of the types of GIS and mapping software, this table kind of like it's quite sort of like simple sort of look at that. So you've got the type of the GIS on the left hand side there, and then sort of how the sort of analysis capability of that with some examples. And again, the geo browser, not much capability there. If you're looking at analysis, it's mainly to display data. And I believe that we probably all would have used this at some point or other. I mean, it's ubiquitous, the use of Google Maps and Google Earth. It's hard to imagine what life was like before you had access to those things. Then you have the web-based ones, which are reasonable. You can upload information, additional information, and a little bit of customization of display and basic analysis. And again, I know from some of the reports that you sent back that some of you have used Google My Maps, so you'll be familiar with that as well. And then there's I suppose the thing that I'm going to be concentrating on over the next few sessions, which is the kind of the desktop mapping software, which gives you really full control over your map creation, and also a sort of an advanced capability to analyze the information that you're layering within your map as well. And I've already mentioned, obviously, the software we'll be using, which is QGIS or Quantum GIS. And the other one that you probably will have heard of is Esri. So Esri ArcGIS Pro there, which is the commercial side of things. So again, a US company that have built up over many years. So I think that things like Google My Maps are a really, really good way of getting into producing your own maps. Like I say, I'll be concentrating on the use of the free desktop software QGIS. But there are other options, like we say, with things like Esri. So they do Esri ArcGIS online for personal use, and that's licensed. So you have to pay for it, but you do get a free 21-day trial. So if people want to go that route, the more commercial route, that's a good option. Again, it gives you kind of like a full suite of analysis tools. And there are some people that would say, oh, great, with Esri, you do get that kind of support, let's say. But equally, I don't feel like it's as flexible as using QGIS, which has a kind of like a global input from developers. But it's, you know, I use Esri every day at work, and it is great. But equally, I also use QGIS even in a work environment. So there are also other kind of like more focused mapping tools that you can find online. web-based software, and these are things like Leaflet or Open Layers. And Leaflet, again, it's free to use, and you can create some really nice interactive online maps with it. But the warning is that you have to be able to code and have programming skills. That's fairly essential for that. And again, if any of you are interested in going down that path, there is lots of support online with instructive videos. But again, that's and some of the examples I'll show you are actually produced with Leaflet here. Okay, so what is the data that can be combined? So, like I say, fundamentally, GIS is a way of combining lots of layers and information that have a location component. And that's what makes it really, really powerful, because it helps us to see relationships and patterns between layers that may not be apparent when viewed separately. So some of the layers that you can combine are obviously maps, charts, aerial imagery, satellite imagery. Again, satellite imagery, you can actually obviously we've got online web imagery, but you can also actually download your own satellite imagery now. Digitized topographic data. So what I mean by that is things like contours, and then digital elevation models. So these can be generated from things like from LiDAR, so they can give you a 3D layer. And also the textural, the records and the tables that are then linked to those locations. And these can all be combined. Okay. So this is I suppose what you call a basic example. And this is a Google Maps geo browser. And I'm sure that some of you will probably recognize where that is, who are local. And basically it uses the Google Maps individual layers to create the map. So each of these, I've got the points of interest on here. So the points of interest are a layer, the road networks are a layer, and the water bodies a layer. So your water bodies would be a polygon, road networks are lines, points of interest are points, and they're all added and can be added separately. And then be organized into kind of like sort of themes. So you'd have infrastructure and hydrology and boundaries. So when you make your own map, you choose what layers you want and how to visualize and symbolize them. So this is kind of like the simplest form. So that, again, that's the power of doing it yourself, is that you make the decisions about how you want the purpose of your map and how you want it to look. So what I'll do now is I'm going to go through a whole sort of series of real world examples, some simple, and some more complex, but they all use this same layering of information to make a map. And they'll have a focus purpose, and they'll tell a specific story. So this is our first example, and again, this is online, interactive, and it's the World Heritage interactive map. And again, you can see here, this is their kind of like front page, and you could do a search with this using the list and sort of criteria down the side here. Or you can actually, and again, hopefully this will work, we can go to the website and we can open up the actual thing, and we can show you on the buttons here, you can zoom in. And again, this is a layer. So you've got an underlying map, global map, and then all the World Heritage sites are a layer of points. So actually, really, it looks great, but it's really quite simple. So on the page, it's an online geographic system, and it displays the georeferenced maps, and has a spatial reference system, like the lat and longs that we were looking at earlier. And it's got all of the World Heritage properties on here. This one is actually, again, this is Esri. We talked about Esri, the commercial company. This is developed by them. And it's a kind of slick, fancy version of what could be done with Google My Maps, in my opinion, but will have cost a great deal more money. So if we click on the point here, oh, there we go. So I've zoomed in there and we've got St Kilda. You go, oh, that's not very exciting. So we click on that. And then there we go. So it goes through to much more information about St Kilda with images and the whole lot. And again, it's very slick, but essentially you could do very, very similar thing. Okay. So this is our second example, and I think it's really kind of in complete contrast to the World Heritage Interactive Map. Map Action are an amazing non-governmental organisation, and they use GIS and in most cases QGIS, which is completely free, to create maps which inform and mitigate when a crisis occurs anywhere around the world. And aid agencies really rely on these as disasters unfold. So they're a great organisation. What I've got here is a couple of examples from their website. And this is a recent one. So this is a recent example of a map that was created using QGIS of the tropical storm which hit Kitts and Nevis in October last year. And it provides a really great overview of the storm track up on the left-hand side here. And also you can see on the map itself, you can see kind of like the administrative boundaries and the kind of, like I say, from the simple map we were looking at on Google. So you've got your lines there, and also the settlements and the infrastructure, the natural features. And then you've got a really quite nice, simple key and scale over here. All the information on here is entirely free. You don't have to pay for it. It can be downloaded and can be used in a map. So again, what I'm saying is that essentially you could create something like this using QGIS. It looks great, but it's doable. So, and the second one on here, you can see the information about the population of St Kitts and Nevis and where it's clustered. And obviously this is vital if you're looking to take aid to a place. You need to know about the location of where the most people are going to be that need help. And the people that make these maps, they're mainly volunteers from right across the world, and they have some GIS skills that can be utilised at a moment's notice. And Map Action they also aim to provide training on the ground as well to support local people to become skilled so that they can make their own maps, so that they can pass on that power to do this kind of thing to them as well. And I think that's really quite inspiring. Okay. So this is looking a bit closer to home for us back in the UK. And again, I think it's a really, really great example of the power of mapping and of GIS. And I don't know whether any of you, but I recently read Guy Shrubshole's book on the lost rainforests of Britain, and he writes passionately about the loss of temperate rainforests along our west coast in Britain, and also the remaining pockets which are left. And he's a fan of GIS himself. And he wanted to produce an accurate distribution map. And so what he did is he put out a call to the public on social media a few years back to send locations and pictures of any remaining temperate rainforest that they knew about, so that he could then put it on a map. So people filled in a really quite simple Google My Maps form, and that Gaia created and sent their information back, and gradually it was added to this Google My Maps map here. So again, really simple. So this is kind of like, this is really crowdsourcing at its best. It's getting people to provide their own information because they're local and they know exactly what they're seeing, they're looking at. Whereas obviously you'd have to do a lot of traveling around to collect this information yourself. So each of these points of where information has been sent back, we can click on them, hopefully click on them. There we go. And along the side here we go, oh, that's Dalavish Woodland. And it gives you the latitude and the longitude, those important things of the location, where it is. This one's not fence centre photo. And again, we've got, oh, look, Alliance for Scotland's rainforest sites. That's the source. So pretty simple. But goes then, because of that, the information is used to create a more accurate map. So if we go back into here, the idea was that the information that the public had sent in could then be used in a more academic version of the map. And this one is created with something called Mapbox, which is another kind of like interactive map making tool for online. It also uses OpenStreetMap. And again, if you continue with the training, you'll be hearing lots more about OpenStreetMap maps. And again, it's a really nice distribution map, but something again that could be done in QGIS. Because it's overlaid that information that was crowdsourced onto Map of the UK, and with also a little bit of more sciencey, techie stuff where they've worked out zones of basically where the climate is suitable for this temperate rainforest to actually exist. So we've got the kind of like fragmentary rainforest in kind of like green color there. So the rainforest fragments there, if I turn those on and off, you can see those. And then you've got the zones where actually it could exist if conditions are absolutely right. And then also we've got information about species indicators, mosses and liverworts and lichens. So you can see from that simple mind maps, and then the information has been layered onto this map to give far more information. And this can then kind of like really provide a really nice example of kind of how you tell a compelling story with maps, and also how it could be used to actually encourage kind of conservation within the UK as well. And I think that's the idea for Guys, that he uses this information, because as we said, maps, information, or power. So again, move on to the next one. So this is the National Biodiversity Network Trust. And again, this is quite a complex interactive GIS and mapping tool. And it's an online tool that provides a platform, and it's basically there to engage and educate and inform people about the natural world. It's really, really innovative because it combines all a lot of multiple sources of information about UK species and habitats, and it links lots of different databases as well. And again, you'll as we go along into the training, you'll start to hear about databases, which basically are things that hold data, so in the digital world. So yeah, it's got these multiple sources of information, and you can interrogate it, and you can combine that information and do a certain amount of analysis on it, all in this single location on this website. So it's made with Leaflet, which is the one that I've mentioned before, the mapping software, which is free, but requires the coding skills, programming skills. And in its simplest form, you can draw a nice square on the map where you're interested in, and that's exactly what I did in this example over Denali, and it gives you a species count and an occurrence count. And if you click on that, it then gives you your list over on the left-hand side of those 44 species and what they are and where they were found. And if you click on one of those, over on the right hand side, I clicked on I think it was a record for a red squirrel. So I brought up the records of the red squirrel, and I picked out that, and it was recorded in 2021 by James Ferguson and added to the red squirrel database by the Wildlife Trust. So again, lots of information here, and then again that same square, I bring up another set of information, and it shows you those species, those 44 species, and it color codes them. So you get another set of information if you need that, and you can actually download these maps as well. And then here you've got where that information was collected and the databases that hold it. So it's an incredibly powerful tool in use of GIS. Again, not something that I'm suggesting that we'll be doing anytime soon, but it just shows you how these things can be built on. And if we're looking at maybe probably more my level actually, and a little bit drier than those rather exciting examples, this is census information, backed census information. So I think this will have been done with Esri ArcGIS software, but it's really important as a resource for understanding society and planning infrastructure and making decisions. Census plays a crucial role for the creation of these maps, to provide these insights into aspects of the population. And this public data is freely available from the government. And these examples, they show statistical information on how people are employed across Britain, distances travelled by commuters, and these maps, they can illustrate information, or they could illustrate information at a more local community level as well. And the same techniques apply. For example, if the information is available, similar map could be made of people employed in agriculture in Argyll and Bute at different time periods. So it's, although these are national, you can use them for focused areas as well. And again, this is something that could be done simply in QGIS as well. Again, this one, I'm sure, again, many of you will recognise the National Library of Scotland's map images resource, and you can access and view all the maps which have been scanned as high resolution colour zoomable images into this. And this is all based on Esri ArcGIS as well. So this is a format that they've designed and put together. And all of the maps in here have been what they call geo-referenced. And again, you'll be hearing about geo-referencing if you continue with the training. And what it basically means is it's where that particular scanned-in map is fitted to a spatial reference system within the GIS. So going back to that globe with the lat and the long on it on that grid, it's fixed in a position on the globe. And this could be done for your own projects as well. You can georeference in QGIS. So if you have historic maps or plans that you've scanned in and you want to overlay them on with other information or create your own information, and you have access to QGIS, it's really useful for things like local archives or community history projects. So this is great. This is a massive, powerful tool, but at a sort of like ground community level, these sorts of things can be done for that as well. And looking at it from a more historical GIS point of view, again, if you have historic records as spreadsheets or tables, and they've been added maybe into an Excel spreadsheet after having been digitized. This has come from a parish archive. And you've got maybe details of where people lived and their occupation. What you need to do is add actually that spatial information to that spreadsheet to be able to put them into a GIS. So it requires the coordinates, that latitude and longitude, or actually in the UK, even a grid reference and easting and northing. So you would add a couple of columns to your spreadsheet with that latitude and longitude, or easting and northing, and then the GIS will recognize that, and you'll be able to import it into your QGIS project and be able to see that visually as points. Now there's something quite clever called geocoding, which depends on the use of something called a gazetteer, and this has a list of places with those coordinates already connected, and there is a way of actually joining a table like that to your own spreadsheet. Quite complicated, but there are even you can get courses on just doing that for historians. Or you can do it the other way, which is you can actually geocode and give the position information line by line. And you can even pick out, so if you were to go into Google Earth and you click on the position that you're interested within your map, it actually brings it up that latitude and longitude. So the reference here is at the top here, and it'll tell you that, and then you could plug that into your spreadsheet and import it. And that's something that I can show people how to do. Slightly more academic. So if we take what can be done with GIS and mapping in history to next level, I was quite interested to see that this author of this book has based all of his findings on the GIS analysis of Roman forts in the Scottish landscape. And he's done lots of clever landscape analysis and combined lots of layers of information to provide evidence for his conclusions on how the forts were positioned. Even though, and I'm looking at the map here, which is the only one available, because obviously you can't, because of copyright issues, you can't just take images out of a published book and show them, but this is the one that came with the kind of like ad for the book. And that looks to me like it's created in QGIS. And as I'll show you later, I've done something very similar myself. So again, something like that, fairly simple to do. Afraid I didn't buy this book. I was quite interested, and I would have done, but when I saw how much it was, I thought I had second thoughts about it. But again, a really sort of like interesting example of how it's being used in academia as well. Okay, so right, what I will say now is everybody okay? Would they like a 5-minute, 10-minute comfort break? Hello, Jill, what do you think?
Anybody can come off mute. Do you want to carry on, or would you like to, or put it in chat, or do you want to carry on, or do you want to a 5-minute go and get a cup of tea? Let Sarah. Let Sarah.
I'm happy to carry on.
Yeah, happy to carry on.
Happy to carry on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm happy with that then. Fine. Okay. I just thought I'd better give you all the chance.
Yep.
Okay. Right. So these next few examples are all Esri based, so all commercial GIS examples of online interactive maps, and they show what's available at a kind of like more county level for us through open data systems, and this means that there's kind of a set of policies that have to be adhered to by the government and by local councils. And this kind of promotes transparency of the data that there is available, the information that they hold, and it kind of, they see it as a sort of value creation thing to make it open to the public. So they'll produce and commission, obviously public bodies produce and commission lots of huge amounts of quantities of data and information. And it's now thought, well, won't just hold on to that, we'll put it out there for the public to see and to use as well. And this stuff can be really useful in providing layers of information for GIS projects locally as well, because it has things like well, this one for instance, it's open data, so renewable energy sites. So again, very simple. you're looking at, if you're interested in where the renewable energy sites are in Argyll and Bute. This is provided by the council, and each of these little points on here overlaid onto a very simple map are sites of renewable energy, and it's got a data set there, and you can actually download this and you could add it to your own QGIS project. Similarly, again, simple maps of kind of like boundaries and areas and transportation. This kind of information is available, and you can sort of download boundaries information from the local council. They've got an open portal in which you can search and find this kind of information. And similarly here, so we've got, in fact, this is one that I've actually downloaded myself, and I think I might well add as one of the, when we're making our own simple map later on, for you to use yourself. And again, you can see the download here, and it just shows you the outline of the community councils in Argyll and Bute. Again, really sort of like simple data set, but useful when creating your own maps. And again, this is actually one for the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park. And again, it's simply got layers that are available publicly. So things like the National Forestry Inventory, boundaries and strategies and all this sort of thing. So again, in a simple GIS. Oh, and just to say, all of the websites that I've got at the top of these are all available on the documents that are available in the package. I think you've all been sent a link to this. So you can go afterwards and you can look at all of these websites and see what there is available and see how they, you know, go and have a look at them yourselves. So something to do this evening. So again, it's just showing you kind of like the data that's available. Right now we're getting down to really more kind of like local. So my real interest outside of work is archaeology, and I completed history and archaeology MLit back at the end of 2022. So I'm also particularly invested in the use of GIS in this field of work in archaeology. So I know that, and again, some of you go, oh, here we go, it's Neolithic Orkney again, because there's always a lot of focus on Neolithic Orkney because of the World Heritage Site, basically. And this is apparent in the amount of studies using technology like GIS and remote sensing. So this particular slide here, it shows, it goes back a few years to when they produced a research agenda. And it really illustrates the intent to combine range of data sets beyond the analytical into a GIS. And so this was kind of like, there was obviously some planning and some thought that went into not just kind of like throwing technology at the archaeology that they're doing there for the World Heritage Site, but to actually plan it beforehand, before kind of it got out of control, I suppose I would say. So they wanted to look at the cultural resource management and how things would kind of impact what was going on there on sort of future field work. And they also, which was interesting to me, wanted to combine it with modelling sea level changes because of the impact of that, and highlighted also the fact that, you know, that GIS goes beyond just the analytic, and it can hold kind of this other data as well. And then that leads us to the next one, which I thought was very interesting because there's kind of like a line of direction going on here. So this was a dynamic coast adaptation and resilience options at the Bay of Scale, and again done with GIS, and some, again, look quite complex maps. I think they probably were done with QGIS, I have a feeling. And again, if we think back to kind of some of the simpler maps that we're looking at by map action, then this is exactly the same thing. You've got your frame and you've got your legend and you've got your layers of information. So be it imagery or elevation or point data. And so it's showing the height on the maps there, and it's showing the bathymetry or the depth of, I want to say, the depth of the water there. And again, these things are, with some training with QGIS, are within people's grasp to be able to do themselves, to be this visually appealing. And I think that those are pretty good. So this brings us on to this book here, which I did buy because I was very interested in the tech that it was talking about. And it brings together kind of like the years of work devoted to the landscape in the World Heritage Site there. And it brings all together like the geophysical and the remote sense data between Skara Brae and West Orkney coast. And it tells you it's all combined within a geographical information system. So that data has been brought together into one place. And basically this particular book, kind of like it shows how the results can then shed light on the character and the extent of the prehistoric sites and the monuments of Orkney. So that kind of like brings it all together. So I think it's quite a bit insightful in its description of the use of technology. So now what we're going to look at is the last few slides, and these are really examples from my own work. And they're all executed in QGIS, and all data is freely available. So what I'm hoping is that sort of these kind of wider examples, and then what I've done you can start to see the possibilities of how you might apply it yourself in your own projects. So these ones are, again, going back to when I was in my MLit, I wanted to produce some simple maps for some of the projects I was working on. So on the left-hand side there, you've got Argyll and Bute, and with Orkney, because I was doing a comparison between the way that archaeology had been approached between Argyll and Bute and Orkney. So I just wanted a kind of overview map of the sites and where they sit within the landscape. And again, you can see over on the left there, left bottom right, simple map with boundary information, like I was showing you, that was freely available from the council, overlaid on an outline of the UK. Really, really simple to do within everybody's grasp. And similarly, on the right-hand side, very simple point data laid over outline map of the UK with a legend stuck in there. So again, this is the sort of thing that I think within most people's grasp to be able to do. A little bit more complicated, and I got a bit carried away with this one. We had to make a poster, and I chose to look at the Neolithic stone art of Kilmartin in Argyll. Very busy because I got quite overexcited when I was researching it, but it includes again the use of QGIS GIS. So I've kind of like blown up the panel here, the distribution. So it's good for distribution of rock art in Kilmartin Glen. So I was able to download the point data. So each of those points is available to download from Canmore, which again I think I put a link to in the information that was in the package for you. So again, easily doable layer of information, and then I was able to sort them into kind of like the classification of what type of rock art it was, and to give a nice overview of the rock art densities in Scotland as well. So again, with a little bit of practice, the kind of thing that people can do and build up to. and really attractive visually as well. And then this is where kind of like I moved into my dissertation, and why I'm probably sitting here now and doing this is that I wanted to look at, can open source methodology be used to develop an accessible process to visualize the archaeology of the Catherine Eco-Museum at landscape scale, contributing to understanding of change and transition over time. So it's a very fancy title, which dissertations often are. But basically what I wanted to do was use open source toolsets like QGIS and information that's freely available to see if I could build some really nice kind of like visual maps and 3D representations of the Catherine Eco-Museum, which is over in Perthshire and Angus. And I used the kind of like, as an example, I chose the sort of prehistory, Neolithic period kind of archaeology to illustrate what I was trying to do. And this is just a series of 2D maps that I created in QGIS. You know, it's got a north arrow, it's got scale, overview map, and then it's layered exactly in the same way with information like, you know, the simple sort of geo browsers are. So you've got your background map, you've got a boundary, you've got road system, river system, and then points for where the main towns are, and one on the left there. In the center you've got, again, this was from Canmore, you've got the prehistory archaeology with a key there, and it's shown on the map. And then on the right, this is where I started to play with something called hill shading, which you can use with elevation data, so height information. And that is something that I would come on to in the fourth of these sessions if people were still interested. So then we get on to the really fancy stuff that I was doing, which is the kind of use of QGIS. And this is the great thing, is you can output from QGIS, you can output web pages and you interactive maps, and you can also do 3D visualizations as well. So it's that same layered data showing in these illustrations, but and hopefully this will work. If I click on the rock art one, you get a WYSI interactive visualization of the Catherine Eco-Museum with kind of like the heights illustrated in kind of with the colors and the main places there. And I can stop that and I can move it around, and that can be uploaded if you so wish onto a web page as well. So it's a really nice way of kind of like illustrating the topography of a place. And this is very similar. This has got the crop marks and hut circles from prehistory marked onto the elevation data, so you can see it in 3D. So here we go. So and the idea of that is, if you can see something in 3D, you can start to see patterns in distribution that you won't see on a 2D map. So it starts to give you an idea of the kind of layout of where things are distributed. So go back. And this, I know, will probably hold some interest for some of you, because I know you have an interest in LiDAR. And LiDAR is obviously very fancy, high resolution elevation data sets. And if I click on there, you can go through to the Scottish Remote Sensing portal, and it shows you all of the LiDAR elevation information that's available for Scotland, and you can download it from here. And that's, again, that's something that I would look at in our fourth session for those who are interested in how to do that. and how to actually create some of the things that I've been creating, those 3D visualizations. So again, okay. So I'll have a look at, and these created again with the LiDAR. And the beauty of this is they're so high resolution. These are the data sets of 25 centimeter. You can start to see every lump and bump in the terrain, and you can actually see in this one, you can see where the river channels used to go, where they've changed over time. So they're really visually attractive, I think. And again, you can stop that, see that. And again, I say this, all this is done with QGIS and with open source data information. So, and this one as well. I'm only showing off now. And again, you can see in the terrain every lump and bump. In fact, some of these things where it's got cairns, you can see actually the circles and the cairns actually in the terrain. So, and I was saying about the fact that you can actually create your own interactive maps. So a lot of those that I was showing you were in sort of flat 2D, and then the 3D, and this is an interactive one which you can generate again from QGIS. You can put all your layers on, and I click on that, it goes into, and this can be again uploaded. It's an interactive map that can be uploaded to a website, and it's generated from QGIS. And again, you've got all the layers. So for this particular one, this was for Jill's sake. So it's got a layer of Old Chatham from the Canmore site. So each one of these, when I zoom in, I can click on that and it gives you the information. So this is Shealing Huts, post-medieval. It gives you that information there. So I can zoom out again. There's the boundary of our Chatham. There's the boundary of Lawn. And if I turn all those off, you've got an OpenStreetMap standard map. There's a National Library of Scotland 6-inch Scottish map for 1842 to 82, and then underlying all of that, you have the open source satellite imagery under all that. And again, this is all generated from QGIS. So okay. So that's the kind of like the more complex thing you do, and I'm sure you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to do that. So I've said here, we'll start simple. So my idea is that at the end of the 4 sessions, but with some perseverance, you should be able to create some maybe simple survey maps or a trail map. So on the left hand side there, we've got again, this is done in QGIS. It's got a simple frame with a nice grid around it with British National Grid references. It's got a scale, and it's got the one of the historic maps in there. And this was from Argyll Farm when we went out to do a kind of like a walkover survey, an overview. Simple key. The sites we were looking at are marked on there. There's the track marked on going up here, and then some of the photos. And this was, say, in a map layout that you can export out of QGIS to create a nice simple map. And you could put any kind of layer in there. You could georeference your own map and put it in there. And then over on the other side, it's again, I've quickly put this together. It's a trail map for stage 7 of the Kintyre Way. And I found that the actual trails that you can see there in the dotted line, again, that information, that data is, you can just download that and then add it as a layer to your map and create your own trail map. And again, with a nice simple key, and I overlaid it with some sites of historic interest, then a scale bar, and a north sign, again, fairly simple to put together and to learn how to do. So I'm hoping that's kind of, you find that some inspiration in that. So we're getting towards the end, and I'm kind of thinking, well, so what have we discovered through all of those examples? Well, I'm hoping that we've discovered that there's lots, it's empowering for heritage groups with, to use mapping and analysis. You can create interactive maps that you can map historical landscapes. You can map changes in land use over time. It's great for engaging communities in mapping. We saw from the rainforest example, you can crowdsource and get people involved. And I think it encourages collaboration between people who are kind of like in community groups, but also engages them with professionals as well, because it's kind of like almost like a common language. And I think it really encourages the sharing of information between different groups and across kind of like the boundaries of heritage interests as well. And I'm sure that maybe, hopefully, you can add to that list. So before we have maybe a discussion and a few thoughts from everybody, I'll just say that the next session, which I'm hoping is getting down to the nitty-gritty, is going to be an introduction to just the basics of QGIS and what it is and its key features, how you get started and install it on your laptop or desktop. And then look at the interface and how you use it and the data types. So kind of real kind of slow lead into actually starting to create hopefully your own maps in the next sessions. And I think that's where I'm going to stop, Jill, and hopefully there'll be some discussion generated from that.
You want to stop
I will
sharing?
stop sharing. Yeah, I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That's just amazing. The power of it all, the versatility, and hopefully the simplicity, I think, is just inspiring.
Yes.
Well, welcome anybody to ask questions. You can put your hand up, you can take yourself off mic, whatever you'd like to do. Jeanette? Mute. Yep.
Okay, we're unmuted. It was I was doing it remotely, as in Zoe was unmuting. So my question is, at the moment I only have Chromebook, so it doesn't actually have a hard disk. That means that QGIS isn't going to load onto it, is it?
No, you need to have really a laptop or a desktop PC in order for it to run correctly.
Okay.
I mean that is obviously that is an issue. But I think other things are open to you. So on things like Google My Maps, I'm right in thinking that, Jill? I know that.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe a kind of interim step.
Okay.
Any more? Anne?
Yeah, I was just wondering about, we were talking about, briefly mentioned GDPR. And I was going to say also, do you have to reference the system that you're using when you create a map? Some of the ones that you showed us do, and some of them don't.
Yes. So in QGIS, it's quite complicated to describe unless you're doing it. But yes, each of the layers that you have will have a reference, or mostly will have a reference system attached to them. So if you download a map that's already georeferenced, it will be referenced to a system. So all of your layers in your QGIS will need to be referenced to the same system. So, for instance, the most famous one amongst people who use maps and charts is WGS 84. And then, of course, in this country, you would want it to be referenced if your map is British National Grid, then you would need it. So it all needs to be in the same system. But that again is something that I would go through quite early on.
Thank you. And just as a sort of a side one from that, with regard to GDPR, if we were to record all the churches on Mull, and some of them have been turned into private residences, how would we deal with that? Because you couldn't put something on a map if it's a person's private home, possibly, even if it's an old church.
Yeah, I mean that again, that's a different question than because that's more to do with, it's like a copyright question rather than a and again, it's not something I can actually answer. I would have to
okay, well, yeah, we'll probably have to find out.
I mean, the other thing is, I mean, in truth, I mean, lots of places are marked on maps and they are private residences. I suppose it's what you would say, what you attribute that with. So if you go, this is Mr. and Mrs. so-and-so's house and it used to be a church, then probably not. But if you go, this building used to be a church, then I can't see that that's an issue, because it's more about how much personal data, and that's not saying that a building used to be a church is not personal data.
Kintarlin is on Canmore. Here, this place is on Canmore.
Oh, well,
the old mill.
Yeah, so yeah, if it's on Canmore, then yeah.
I can see that Eleanor's asked a question. She's asking about processor hard drive capability. That's very technical. Is that something we need to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you haven't got a really ancient laptop or desktop, it should be okay. I have actually, I think I put it on one of the original documents that I gave to the Heritage Forum about the actual nitty-gritty technical requirements. It is somewhere on a document in there. But yeah, so unless you've really got a kind of like, it's like a wind-up one or something, it should be okay. It's probably more about because of the way that QGIS works, and you've got web maps within it, so you need good access to the internet. So it's probably your Wi-Fi connection is probably as important as anything else.
Yeah.
Yes. And which version of Windows possibly?
Windows isn't, that's
which processing, yes.
Oh yeah, possibly.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Would anybody like to ask a question about your own project that you've got in mind?
Anybody got a project of their own?
Anybody got a project in mind?
Jill's got the starter one. Oh, Zoe.
I was just interested, Sarah, in the idea of sea level changes and things. That would be something I am quite interested in, but I haven't thought about how it might relate to the island on which we live. No, but it does interest me, so I shall be listening out when you're talking about that stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, for me, for the Ardhatton version, certainly the that census data, to be able to put people into their places throughout the 1800s and into this one, that sounds like great fun, as well as our prehistory, because we have as rich a prehistory as Kilmartin, but it's never been appreciated in the same way.
I'm just looking through the chat to see what's going on in there. No, this is great. So
Susan, would you like to speak?
Yep. So I'm in Glendaruel. Interested in what you just said, Jill, about about the having as interesting an environment as in Kilmartin, because Glendaruel is said to be the same, and I have in mind of mapping a sort of layered mapping Glendaruel, because we have currently reforesting going on.
Right, yeah.
On land which has previously been open farmland.
Okay.
I was involved with the Scotland's Rock Art project, and we covered that area, and it's really very rich in many layers. So I've actually done a paper map based on the first Ordnance Survey, which took me ages, but so it would be brilliant to do.
Are you talking about is that in the Kilmartin area, or is that?
No, we're on Cow. We're on Cow.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
The south of Stracher.
Yeah, okay.
So we're not
I mean, again, there's lots of opportunities. I mean, I know that forestry use it a lot, GIS, but again, if you've got access to like historic mapping, and there's all sorts of layers that you can add to that, and imagery that would be really useful. So yeah, definitely that lends itself to it. Yeah,
I think we certainly did. A lot was lost when the original forestation took place.
Would be a great time of year to be putting up anybody with drones that you could then associate sort of stills and imagery and recordings to locations later.
Good idea.
On.
I think my son-in-law's got one.
Yeah, I mean, the next sort of 6 weeks is a great time to get a drone up when the bracken's down and the forestry's down.
Thanks for that, Jill.
One of the things that we are thinking is this is very much an ongoing. So we're going to learn, the very basics with this, and then build going forward. We've got people on here who are definitely way beyond those of us who are just beginning to start going plink. And there are other people who have been in touch who have experience as well. Just to get us kicked off, I've started a WhatsApp group. It's simple and it's easy. But if everybody has ideas as to how you would like to communicate, collaborate, then please let us know, because there is, we could do Facebook, but we appreciate that everybody's, as a private group, we appreciate not everybody's on Facebook, but if there's a number of people who are, or we could go on to one of the other variations on sort of old-fashioned bulletin board type things. Please feedback, because we very much would like to build on the community that we've got here. And even if you can't continue with everything, or you feel it's too much for you right now, we're recording everything. All of those things will be available to everybody in the group here. You're welcome to share with your colleagues. Please, if there's anybody else who would be interested, please don't share the link direct, but get them to get in touch with us, and we can bring them into the group, so that we maintain that control between ourselves. We're working as a community here. That would be fantastic. But yes, certainly this has been recorded. It will go down, be downloaded, and then uploaded into somewhere where you get a link for everything. And if you want any more information, if you want anything, get in touch with us. We're learning.
Well, I think, Jill, if there are no more questions.
Alison, Alison, Sharon?
I've got a quick one.
Okay.
I'm interested in creating a QGIS thing on the earliest megalithic monuments in Britain and Ireland, which require international mapping systems to be stitched together. Is that a fairly straightforward thing to do?
Oh goodness. Sorry, can you just repeat that about the last bit?
Scotland, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. Yeah.
So in what format do you have the information at the moment?
Well, I mean, it exists in various formats. So you've got Canmore. It hasn't been put together. We're trying to create a project that would actually do this, and that would be a fantastic community resource for people, pointing out that the earliest megalithic monuments are shared between Britain and Ireland. So
no, definitely. I mean, I mean, although it's in, I mean, that's kind of like the problem I had with my dissertation, because some of the information I was looking at was on Canmore, some of it was still in historic environment records for, I think it was Perth and Kinross, and then somewhere else. So I had to kind of like load it all up together and kind of link it. So that, yeah, that's absolutely feasible to do that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, before Anne just sends us off, I will just say, anybody in the open area in, what is it, 10 days time, on Saturday the 24th, please come to Corin Hall's studio to come and hear Alison Sheridan and her colleague Angela Boyle giving us the very latest DNA and osteology research on the people of the open caves. Sorry,
I'm really sad.
That was very much abusing my position, but
yeah.
Not at all. Not at all.
Thanks
Not
for the
at
advert.
all.
I would have
Yeah,
loved to have,
thank you
I
very
would have
much.
loved to have come and listened to that. However, I've got another engagement. But I think you're trying to record it, Jill?
I am. I'm going to phone Alison this evening and talk to her about that, because I've got someone who's been recording in there. So yes, hopefully it'll be available later on if she agrees.
Yeah.
Excellent. Fingers crossed. I shall be there. I have cancelled an alternative appointment because I shall be there.
How sweet of you. Thank you.
Looking forward to it, Alison.
So am I.
Well, if there are no other questions, I think it just remains for me to just briefly tell you that the whole object of our the forum's 2024 project programme is to search out and invite all of those unknown culture and heritage organisations in Argyll and Bute that we don't already know about, and to invite them to join the forum. We have Beth Anderson, who is our micro meetings coordinator, already making a great start, and our membership base is already increasing. You can find out about the micro meetings on our website. Today is the first session of Sarah's GIS course, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. First, I'd like to thank all of you who have participated in the project so far. It makes all the hard work worthwhile. Next, I'd like to say a very big thank you to the forum team. There are only 5 of us and everyone is very committed. Jill Bowis deserves a very special mention as the techie member of the forum team. It's unlikely that this programme could have gone ahead without her. Thank you very much, Jill. Last but not least is Sarah. Sarah has made a scary thing so much more approachable and doable. So a huge thank you to you, Sarah. I hope you've all enjoyed this as much as I have. Thank you all again and see you next time. Thank you and bye for now. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, sorry, Alison.